Here we go. All right, recording in progress. Hey, experimentalist. It's Wade again, with another interview. This time I have, I guess I can now call a good friend, Carolyn Cook, one of the premier and just overall talents here in Atlanta. If you have not seen Carolyn Cook act in a production somewhere here in Atlanta, you're really missing out. She's an absolute force to reckon with. Um, but there is a puppetry side to this. I actually got to work with Carolyn when we did The Imaginary Invalid for Theater du Rêve, or the Theater of the Dream. Um, and that was in January, and had a fantastic time. So I want to hear about her experience about working with puppets for the very first time, even though it was not the first
Yeah,
time for the theater to work with puppets. But as much as I would love to get into your acting background and how you got started, and we're going to skip a little bit forward from that just because we don't have a huge amount of time. And I
sure.
wanted to ask about how you decided that you wanted to open up a French theater in Atlanta.
Well, I had majored in French in college, but I had always done theater, all the way through school and everything. And um, my junior year abroad, I studied in Paris and I got to see a lot of plays and studied the theater of that particular season in Paris. And so I saw just all kinds of different theater and really coming from a small town in Georgia, because I grew up in Dalton, um, which was the big town around a lot of really small towns,
Yeah.
but was still much smaller than Atlanta. I just hadn't seen that much professional theater. So um, I saw professional theater regularly for the first time in Paris. And I came back just eager to act in French, and do a senior project in French and theater. And it just did not work out as an academic project. So it was always kind of on the back burner, something I dreamed of doing. And, fast forward 12 years or so after I graduated, I still wanted to act in French. And I don't know, I just started collecting people who had the same wish, and I decided to produce a play, and that was in winter 1995, 96, and that was the beginning of Theater of the Dream, Théâtre du Rêve. So I called it that because it had been a dream.
Yeah. I with like most emerging theater, usually start pretty small. So probably wasn't maybe too hard to find other actors who maybe knew French to kind of bring them into this project. Um, but beyond that, and throughout the years, have you found that has gotten easier to find Atlanta actors who are interested in doing French theater, or has it gotten harder throughout the years?
It has not gotten harder. I think that the rise of the internet has really helped in that people are a lot more exposed to a lot more of the world at large. And it's easier to put the word out, but it's also easier for people to work on their French online or, anything like that. If somebody's got a little bit of French, we can bring them along more quickly than we can if we had to, hire a person to just stay by their side all the time until they learn their lines or anything like that. I mean, we've done everything from help somebody who spoke English and Spanish fluently just learn the French phonetically, to helping people who were fantastic actors and had a little bit of French to learn more French, and then taking people who were mostly or entirely fluent and working with them. It's been this great range. But Atlanta has grown in the last 28 years,
Right.
and our reach has grown. More people know about us. And so I feel like it's been easier to kind of pull a company together. And then on the last production that I did, I hired a couple of people who didn't speak any French at all because they were puppeteers and I wanted puppets. And then,
Right, right.
just figured out a way to make that work. And you were welcome. So
Like, don't give
it's
them
just
any French lines at all.
yeah, no French lines. No, no. it will just, that will be a convention of the play.
For
The
sure.
puppets speak English. There you go. Um,
Let me see if I remember this from the actual production. Um, Theodore has been around for 23 years. Is that correct?
28 now.
28 years, sorry.
28.
28
Yeah,
years. One person in the play was there for the very first production, and another
right.
person in the play wasn't even born yet. Was
Exactly.
that the line
Yeah.
in the beginning?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I always love to tell audiences, if we've one of the things that I love about theater and just any kind of theater or performing art is that there's room for so many generations. We're there. There can be, I'm not a grandparent, but I'm the age of a grandparent. And then, there'll be people in the company who might be just coming out of college, or, depending on the show, there could be children. And there's just always a range. If you're going to tell a good story, it generally covers several generations, especially a family story. A lot of the great stories are about families. King Lear is about family. The play that we did most recently with Teatro du Rêve, The Imaginary Invalid, is about a man and who he wants his daughter to marry, and so you've got the different stages of life, and so theater is a world where we don't get just stuck in our little age group, where the eighth graders won't have anything to do with the seventh graders. We're
Right.
all there together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So even though that, as I mentioned before, because you have other people directing
Hmm.
within the confines of Theatre de Rêve, and
Yeah,
so it's not your first Theatre de Rêve's first production with puppetry in it. It is your first directing puppetry within a piece that you are doing that in. And on
that's right.
top of that, you actually adapted this play as well. So you're writing for it. So
Hmm.
when you were actually writing in the beginning, did you have puppetry in mind at all, or is it something that came a little bit later?
What happened for me was that I had wanted to do this play, The Imaginary Invalid, that has like, I don't know, 11 roles or something. And a theater company the size of Théâtre du Rêve doesn't have the budget to pay 11 actors for the time period that it would take to do the show. And at the same time has the commitment to paying artists for their work. It's absolutely core to our mission. So, as a professional company wanting to hire people, I was looking for a way to hire um, kind of a small tight knit group where we could double roles, or how could we make it work? And there are so many scenes where so many people have to be on stage at the same time that I thought maybe it could work with puppets. Maybe we could have a combination of puppets and humans. And I almost let myself get talked completely out of it for a lot of very good reasons,
Mhm.
because I mean, there just are a lot of reasons why you don't want to dive into puppetry without knowing what you're doing. Um, but it just became clear to me that that was really the story that I wanted to tell, and that there was a way that combining live actors and puppets could say something about the world that we were in, that there were human characters who were manipulating other characters, or putting words in their mouth or things like that, that really seemed to connect to the world of puppetry. And so when we put the audition notice out, we just said, come on in and show us a monologue and show us a little bit of French, and you're going to work with a puppet. And we had a little practice puppet that was there, a little hand and rod puppet that was there for people to work with. And I just started seeing it was just amazing to watch people interact with this little critter whose name was Tabzi. And that's when I just knew it was going to work. So
Gotcha.
that's
So
what we
you
did.
are actually possibly a little bit still on the fence during the time of
No, I,
auditioning.
I was I was gonna do it. I mean, I
You were
already
going
knew
to
I
do
was
it.
gonna do
Okay.
it. But my confidence in the concept just grew. You know,
Yeah.
this is going to work. This is going to work. We're going to make it work. I don't know how it's going to work. We're going to discover how it works.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
all of that. Because as you know from being part of the process, it was very much a discovery process and a trial and discovery process, I would say, rather than a trial and error process. Although there was even one entire puppet design that was brought in and tried and decided against, you know, and we went
Yeah.
with something else. It's in which is remarkable to me in the very short period of time that we had, but it turned out, right? It turned out, right,
It
Wade?
turned out. Yeah,
It
exactly.
did.
And
It did.
that's the you were talking about theater in general before, and I think that's kind of a part of just theater. It's just discovery, right? Each
I
production you
hope
go into,
so.
it's all about discovery. You're not quite sure where you're going to go with this.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always want to do is bring a group of collaborators together and find what does each person have to contribute that can be multiplied or magnified in relationship to what somebody else has to contribute, so that it's not just a hodgepodge. It becomes kind of this um complex geometric shape, you know, where you've got all these different intersections of people's talents and abilities and interests and um senses of humor or of drama or of spectacle or of musicality or whatever, so that you create something that none of us would have imagined in exactly that way when we started,
Yeah,
but that collectively we agree tells the story that we're trying to tell or creates the environment we're trying to create. Um, it can feel messy at times, but messy's okay with me as long as it feels loving, you know,
sure.
and creative and positive, and messy is fine. That's what the sandbox is, you know,
Yeah.
when you're playing in it with your best friends.
Right. I remember you being a bit apprehensive about, can I direct puppets? Do I know
Yeah,
what I'm doing? And which
yeah, I
is
do.
perfectly
Was not sure
understandable
of that.
reaction.
Yeah.
But uh, when do you think that kind of switched for you to where you were like, oh, what I believe that puppetry is, which is it's just another tool to tell that story. And when
Yeah.
that kind of turned for you to,
I don't know, but something happened along the way where I started talking to the puppets.
hmm,
You know, instead of just talking to the puppeteer and saying, "Will you make it do this?" Which you know, you still do because that technically it would need to be, you know, could you raise that up a little higher? I need to see it better or whatever. But I wasn't ever saying, could you raise that up higher? I was saying, could you raise her up higher? Or could you get him to reach farther? And then with one particular puppet, eh, the puppeteer was playing a human character and also bringing the puppet to life. And so I would just talk to each of them as the character, you know, hey, Tomas, you know, you need to do this, that, and the other. And no, because the puppeteer was right there, she was hearing everything. So it it became sort of, if I tell it to the puppet, then the puppeteer is going to take that in and make it happen. And that's when I realized I'm okay.
yeah.
I'll be all right. You know, because the puppets were characters and
I'm glad you brought up that. So that was Sarah Beth or SB
yeah,
doing the puppeteering for that. And to me, that was one of those scenes where, sure, you could have had two actors doing that, but there was something so magical, especially during the scene where she's having the conversation, um, and then the puppet is turning over to its side to look at
yeah,
the woman he wants to be with.
yeah,
And it was just, you
yeah,
can only get that
yeah.
with puppetry.
Right, because the audience, as you're watching it, you know that the actor who is doing this one thing is actually turning that puppet's head, but
Yeah.
it seems as if she's not, you know. It seems as if the puppet is just alive over there going,
Yeah. There's such
yeah, it was delightful.
innocence to the puppet. It's almost like watching a pet do something
Yeah,
adorable or something like that. You just
yeah,
can't take your
yeah.
eyes off it. You can't help but get warmed in the heart by what you're seeing over here happening.
Well, it's funny you should say that because you think about like, you know, of course the warning to actors is never act with children or dogs. You know, because the audience will just watch the child or the dog, but it's
Yeah.
because the child or the dog is unconcerned with whether you're watching them or not. You know,
Right.
they're just living in the moment. And that's so captivating.
Yeah.
And that's why the internet is full of cat videos because
Right.
the cats are just being cats.
Yeah.
And really, if you think about it, when people put like dialogue over their cat videos, that's puppetry. I mean, it's the same thing. And so yeah, yeah, sometimes you kind of had to feel for the people in this play. That's were so interesting. But actually, they all just really got along really well. And that was another thing that I found fascinating. Another great puppeteer in this town, Annie Peterly, was involved.
Hmm.
And and she came in from time to time as a consultant. And the thing that she noticed and really complimented the cast on was how very seriously they interacted with the puppets. Like, you know, there was just this one hand puppet that just came out of the wall and started, you know, interacting. And everybody just treated that puppet as the human character, even though it was this big, you know, it was
Yeah.
this big.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and from the most experienced actor in the group, Chris Kaiser, to the person who actually got her first paycheck as an actor doing this show,
Right.
um, they just 100% committed to interacting with the puppets. No question.
Yeah.
And I think that was another turning point in the creative process when we just sort of all realized that we considered the puppets to be part of the family. You know, they were just part of the ensemble, and um they needed to be given as much attention and respect as anybody else.
For sure. You know, thinking back on it, I believe that I found your turning point and feeling more comfortable with puppetry and being able to direct puppetry was once you finally put Tomas on your own hand. I think there's something about
Oh, how
that.
interesting.
Yeah, I think there's something about, and that's why I
Huh.
think too, for productions where puppetry is going to be a part of the production, and you have actors who are not participating in the puppetry, for them to get their hands on a puppet and play around with it, just to
Yeah, that
understand
makes
what it does.
yeah.
That's not a scary thing, it's just a tool, and it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then it opens up a lot of
Yes. Yeah.
possibilities.
It definitely, you know, he was hand and rod, and I just yeah, he definitely felt alive
Yeah,
in my hands. You know,
yeah,
he felt like somebody I could talk to and who I could have talked to someone else on my behalf.
right.
Yeah, that's true. That probably was a yeah. I probably just wasn't aware of it, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
just part of the day, but
It was
I was
just my
probably more
observation,
comfortable
so
after that.
so it might not even be
Cool.
true for you,
Cool.
but
Oh,
um
I think a lot of times people outside of us can see shifts better than we can feel them.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um Jumping a little bit ahead, I heard through the grapevine, I'm not sure if you're allowed to talk about this or not, but I heard you might be doing something with this with the Center for Poetry Arts in the future. Is that true? Is it something you can talk
I
about?
have pitched something. I have
Okay.
pitched something.
Okay.
I have, and it is in the hands of people who make decisions.
Sure.
It is not, I have not heard back except just to check in and say, just checking to see if it's still, you know, uh on people's minds, and
Yeah.
the answer was, we'll let you know.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely, but we'll let you know is better than no. Um, yeah, no, I have a story that I have written, and that I tell the story with like my hands.
Okay.
They are involved. And there are different animals, there are birds and fish and things in it. And I wonder what it would be if is that what it is?
Yeah.
Or are there bird puppets and fish puppets to build? Or is there this or is there that? I don't know. I
Oh,
don't know.
interesting. So was this a
But I'm
monologue
just
that you did in the
really,
past?
yes, it's
Oh,
something that I wrote quite a few years ago and just had put down. Um, and I've just brought it back out and I'm playing around with it. So
yeah. That's
see.
that's great. Uh,
Yeah.
would you say that doing the imaginary invalid, like I don't know how all this came about, but that gave you the confidence to go to the center, or did the center come to you and ask you to?
Yes. Um, well, I'm not quite sure. Oh, I know what it was. It was Annie Peterly who had seen that piece and said, you really should talk to the center. That she had seen me do that story that I do with my hands.
Oh, okay.
And so she had suggested I talk to the center. So I did put the feelers out, and then I invited people from the center to come see the Imaginary Invalid, and there it is.
Nice.
That's what you can do. You put it out to the
You
universe,
put it on the universe and see what happens. Exactly.
see where it goes.
I love
Yeah.
it.
I
Um,
there are puppeteers that there's puppetry work out there that I just loved. One of the things about doing the Imaginary Invalid and any project that I do is that I'll do all this research and look online and what are these people doing with puppets? Like I found the Phantom Limb company, and I found, of course, I love Alex and Olmsted, who are actually coming to the center in March of 2025.
mhm,
Um, I just I it's like a world opened up
mm.
of possibilities that are in a theatrical form that is has been there all along, and I've been just doing basically live human theater. And that was really exciting. Even if things that I loved in my research didn't make it into this show, one
Yeah.
of the things that I loved being able to say to you and Sarah Beth and other people is well, the next time we work together, we'll
Right.
try, maybe we'll be able to incorporate that.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Um, because there's this world of possibility
Yeah.
that I
Um,
have explored this much of.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of, I remember when we first met and started talking about the production, had kind of the production meetings, where there was a lot of talk about lots of different puppetry. As with
Yeah.
any play, there's always lots of talks about all the different ideas that you want to do and stuff like that. And obviously, as we went to the production, we had to pare
Oh,
things
yeah.
down. Again, as you do with any production you're
Hmm.
in.
Yeah.
Are you overall, this is a bad question. I don't want to say, are you overall happy with how the production came out? Because of course you are. But were there certain things that you really wanted during that first production meeting that didn't come into fruition, that you really missed, or are you just completely happy with the way it turned out?
Uh, I I am very happy with the way it turned out, mainly because it was still more puppetry than I've ever done.
Yeah.
Like even if we used every puppetry element,
Hmm.
with the possible exception of a human being with a
The
really
mask work.
significant puppet
Mm.
mask head.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I'd seen that I thought was I thought that would have been really cool, but you know, um, but otherwise, we had things that came through the walls. We had things that came up above the walls. We had a puppet that came along with a human, and we had shadow puppetry. We had all that. So we didn't have marionettes, but we didn't want marionettes.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't have bunraku, but really to have that many different styles, just that smaller range, it was still more than one puppetry style, each one utilized in a really interesting way. Um, that was not gratuitous.
Right.
In every case, it lifted the story, it contributed to the story. And so that to me was successful and delightful and funny and happy.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I'm not experienced and sophisticated enough to be able to say, well, if only we'd been able to, blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
It was just exciting to have what we had. I
Yeah.
was thrilled.
You say not gratuitous, but I will mention my enema dispenser was maybe a bit gratuitous, but
You what?
the enema dispenser that I had was a bit
Okay,
gratuitous, but
that was extra. But for to in our defense, it's in the
it's in the
script.
script.
It's in the script. So that had a human actor been coming on stage for that role, that prop would have been in the show because
Yes.
it's in the script. It says right there, Moliere says he enters holding a large animal.
So for anyone who has not seen a Theatre de Rêve play, and you're not French and thinking that, oh, I shouldn't go, that is false. They do have subtitles for all their plays, and I would
Mhm.
definitely recommend any of them to go see. Um, but what I'm getting to here is that so a lot of performances that we were doing were for high schoolers to come and see it
Yes.
during the day. Do you think,
Yeah.
um, and I think probably a lot of those high schoolers were taking French, and this is the reason why they came to see the production.
Yes.
But do you think that the puppetry helped in the um, not in the enjoyment, but getting the piece across to them so they don't
I
think of it as
do.
just kind of another
Yeah.
school production?
Right. I think that they were probably anticipating because it's a classic of French, it's a French language classic.
Yeah,
Um, it's, literature. They're studying it in their French literature class. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
they were probably not expecting for puppets to pop out of the wall,
Yes.
And yeah, and we would ask them sometimes in the post-show discussions, what did you think? Did the puppets affect you or how did they affect you? And they literally said that it really brought them into the story.
Oh, great.
The
Good.
puppetry. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Uh, I know I just got my cue that we got 10 more minutes left, so I want to
Great.
make sure that I hit up on some of the things that you're doing now. Uh, One thing that I do want to bring up really quickly is the fact that you're no longer the artistic director of Theater Direct,
I,
right? And
I
what was that
am,
decision
and
to leave?
well, I'm wrapping up as
Okay,
artistic director.
okay,
I'm I'm retiring in June,
okay.
and I don't know when people will be hearing this, but in June of 2024. And I just, I founded the company 28 years ago. I led it for the first 10 years, and then I was a close associate for 10 years. Then I came back into the leadership, and that's been for another 8 years. And I'm just ready to go figure out, play with puppets or something,
And next
do
stage.
something else. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. Chapter 3 or whatever you want to call it. Um, and so that's where I am. I'm very excited that the board of directors and the artists and everybody want to keep going, that
Yeah.
it's not just like, well, that was cute, Carolyn, but they really want to keep it going.
Great.
So this is good. I'm
Yeah.
I'm happy.
That's great. Well, speaking of, I'm sorry, of different stages, you are at Actors Express right now in a
Yes.
play by the name of Mercury, by I want to call him a local playwright, but he's been gone for so long, I don't feel like I can really call him that
Yeah.
anymore. But Steve Yockey, who's a fantastic playwright who will sometimes put uh, interesting props within his play. I won't really call them puppets, but large teddy bears can sometimes show up in his productions and stuff. How is it working on that production right now?
It's a blast. It's a blast. People are, yes, there are surprises. There are surprises you must come and see. Yeah, it's really fun. It's a wild ride. That's how I describe it. Every
Yeah.
night it's this roller coaster, like we're taking the audience up the roller coaster, and then the scream
I
and fly down the other side.
I would assume a lot of blood appears at some point.
Steve Yockey, yeah.
This is not your first time working with Steve. Steve actually helped you adapt a piece, is that correct?
Steve, Out of Hand Theater commissioned a piece with Steve as the playwright, but a group of actors working with him as a joint stock company um, to come up with a piece about Alzheimer's disease. And at the time, my mother was in the early years of her experience of Alzheimer's disease, and so Steve wound up writing a play about an adult woman care partner for her mother's dementia, and just what that experience is. It's a really beautiful. It's called Blackberry Winter.
Hmm.
I don't remember the exact year that it came out, but that year it was submitted to the National New Play Network Rolling World Premiere Program, where you can have premieres in different cities, and because that whole program is intended to help plays get their second and third productions. That first production is great, but what you really need is that second or third production.
Yeah.
And Blackberry Winter wound up getting chosen and produced in 8 different cities,
Wow.
including Atlanta. And a lot of the stories in it were from my life, but made into a play
Sure.
by Steve
Yeah.
and adapted somewhat. So it wasn't just Carolyn telling stories. I played a character named Vivian, and she had some characteristics that were very like me and some that I hope were not. But in any case, so we did the Atlanta production as a co-production with Actors Express. So that's the last time I've been in a Steve Yockey play at Actors Express, was in
Gotcha.
Blackberry
All
Winter.
right. Well, hate to cut it short because I could keep on talking to you. But
Yeah, it's
time
fun to
is
talk to you.
running out. And I want to reiterate because the play closes April 28th. This is our crazy time at XPT, but I know that a lot of people can go this weekend if there's still tickets available. Again, it's at Actors Express. It's called Mercury.
Hmm.
Um, is there anything else that you
And
would
if
like?
you want, yes, we have an amazing pair of physical comedy performers coming to Atlanta May 3rd through 5th at 7 stages. The show is called Pino and Augustine, and it's with Happenstance Theater Company, and we're going to have a physical comedy actors workshop that weekend. And so go to our website. It's Theater du Rêve is what it looks like,
Yeah.
theatredurev.org, and you'll find out some information, or you can just hit me up for information. Carolyn at theatredurev.com.
Carolyn, as it was a pleasure to work with you on your play, it has been a pleasure to have this interview with you. Thank you so much for your time. and have a good night.
Thanks, you too, Wade.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.